Thucydides was a thinker, scholar who way back said that strong will do what they have to and the weak will suffer what they must. When the superpowers or when the major players and the powers of the world, they broke the norms, laws, rules and regulation without any consequences, this clearly established this fact that might is right. In this treaty, it was accepted that sovereignty of the state is sacrosanct and no one should threaten and violate the sovereignty of the other state. If you are done with your, let's say, GS, if you are done with ancient, if you're done with medieval history, and if you come to the modern history, or you see the contemporary politics, the whole history of human civilization is war. Israel has done in Gaza, or though it was Israel's justification is that it was in retaliation to attack by Hamas, but it's a blatant violation of international norms and it's a clear manifestation of Thucydides Trap. Let's understand the present dynamics of the world politics. Let's try to make a sense of what is going on in world politics and geopolitics and link it with our syllabus of political science. So you can see in front of on your screen that there is written a word Thucydides Trap. I'm sure if you are listening the news and watching so many podcasts, this word is in the news a lot. So Thucydides was a thinker, scholar who way back said that strong will do what they have to and the weak will suffer what they must. So sounds very close to our own Hindi proverb, jiski lathi uski bhans, that strong will do what they can. So strong will always do what they can and the weak will suffer what they must. And this quote, considering the way politics is going on at present in the world, this quote resonates well and holds true despite he said this way back in ancient times. So considering the relevance of this thought, which he said way back in ancient times, we can clearly see much has not changed in world and world politics. And politics still is being seen as the struggle for power. Though there was a scholar called Hannah, she tried to give a different picture of politics, but what she tried to project didn't turn, and politics is still being seen as the struggle for power. And that's why I said this quote of Thucydides still hold relevance and it resonates even in the contemporary times and in the present world. So he also said this, that there is always a risk of war between the established power and the rising power. If we see in the world politics, US hegemony got established since the end of Cold War and US became the sole superpower. So in the world, it is the dominance of the US which was prevailing, which in the recent times is being challenged by China. Though Trump, in his recent visit to China, has tried to give this message that the US is looking forward for engagement, but beneath this engagement, we can see the tensions which are prevailing. And I'm not going into the nitty-gritties of the politics of West Asia, but if you study more, you will realize this. All the present chaos and the conflict which is going on in West Asia is basically the conflict between the two major players and the powers, that is US and China, and Iran is getting a lot of backing from China. This all conflict and war has technically served the interest of China. Okay, so when the superpowers or when the major players and the powers of the world, they broke the norms, laws, rules and regulation without any consequences, this clearly established this fact that might is right. Okay, and still world politics is like a jungle where the law of the jungle prevails, as what prevails is anarchy. And rules are easily to be mended and norms can be broken without consequences. So when powerful states go for the blatant violation of the norms, they are giving a message to the other countries of the world that norms are optional and might is right. And when might turned right, we say it is the law of the jungle which pushed the states to go for power acquisition. And this aspiration for acquisition of power will never end, and that is why the face of the politics has remained same, that it is the struggle for power. Okay, the two dominant theories in the subject of international relation which has analyzed further on these aspects are the theories or the schools in international relation, that is realism or versus liberalism. Okay, so these are the two dominant school or the theories of international relations. Now, realism as a theory, and the realist scholars emphasize on power politics, and for them world politics will remain the same, that is it will be a struggle for power. Considering the way politics is going on in the world, realistic assumption seems true. So this debate that what is the nature of the world politics, okay, the roots of this debate goes way back into the work of various philosophers and the scholars, right? Liberalism as a school gained prominence and dominance after the end of Second World War. But the most dominant school which holds a lot of influence in the stream of international relation is realism. As for realist, world politics will going to remain power politics. For realist, realism is a timeless wisdom. Nothing gonna change in world politics. If we go back into the history, if you're done with your, let's say, GS, if you are done with ancient, if you're done with medieval history, and if you come to the modern history, or you see the contemporary politics, the whole history of human civilization is wars. So this is what the realists believe, that either countries are preparing for war or they are actually fighting war, and wars are inevitable. No matter what, states will fight war, and this is what exactly we are seeing in the present times: chaos, conflicts, wars, and instability, anarchy in the world politics. So the wisdom of Thucydides seems true, and this reflects realism is the most dominant theory and the school of international relations. Okay, so they claim wars are inevitable, and if you see, all wars in the whole history of human civilization has been fought for 3 Gs, that is gold, resources, glory, my name to be remembered long after I'm gone from this world, and gospel, that is religion. Okay, with British in India came Christian missionaries. Islamic rulers took the onus on them to spread the religious values, Islamic values. So all wars, the beneath every war, the root cause is same, that is 3 Gs, gold, glory, and gospel, and the whole history of human civilization is about wars, conflict, and instability. And this is what exactly we are seeing in the present time, and present politics can again be seen as power politics. So Thucydides' wisdom resonates even in the present times. Okay, what Israel has done in Gaza, or though it was Israel's justification is that it was in retaliation to attack by Hamas, but it's a blatant violation of international norms, and it's a clear manifestation of Thucydides Trap. Okay, if you see the way conflicts are going on at present in West Asia, it's a clear manifestation of Thucydides Trap. The strong will do what they can, and the weak have to bear and suffer, as they do not have any other option. Okay, so as I said, realist believes, if you see, more or less every country is either preparing for war or they're actually fighting the war. If I ask, do you think India is preparing for war? For sure we are, because we do believe the day can come when we have to fight a war. If states do not believe in the realistic aspect of, or if states ignore the realistic aspect, Why states are investing so heavily in their defense budgets? One of the core or the prominent objective of India's foreign policy is indigenization of defense. Why we want to do so? And if we are aspiring for that, it reflects realism in our foreign defense policy. And we do believe states are aspiring for power and they keep aspiring for power. ठीक है ना? So after independence, many believes Nehru's policy was more idealist and we ignored the defense aspect. Mere agreement, that is Panchsheel, failed to prevent the Indo-China war, and we'll end up losing our territory of Aksai Chin, which impacts the present interest or which impacts the interest of the present generation. So realist believes that it is only power which can prevent a war. Okay, so they believe in the concept of balance of power. Till the time we are able to maintain balance of power, wars will not take place. So what is the way forward given by the realist scholars for maintaining peace is balance of power. The moment balance of power will get disturbed, war becomes inevitable. This is what the core belief, but this belief itself is problematic because if states will keep aspiring for, it's like a vicious circle. If states keep aspiring for power, power equilibriums are bound to disturb, and once power equilibrium bound to disturb, war took place, and realists claim, see, we are so right, states keep fighting for war. Okay, so they believe in this particular concept of BOP, balance of power for preventing war. For them, despite high tensions during Cold War is the time after the end of Second World War till the disintegration of Soviet Union, the two superpowers. So for them, why Cold War remained cold? It was because there was a balance of power between the two superpowers. And this balance of power was through nuclear deterrence. And had they both didn't acquire the nuclear deterrence, the kind of tensions which was prevailing between the two superpowers, it would have turned into a full-fledged war. So what prevented the Third World War is the nuclear deterrence, threat of mutually assured destruction. No party was in a position to afford so much of destruction, and this became the reason why war never took place between the two superpowers. Okay, and as I said, this thought, this belief itself is problematic, and this motivates countries like Iran to acquire nuclear deterrence. Many believe had Ukrainian leadership would not have surrendered their nuclear arsenal, Russia would have never invaded Ukraine. So realists believe in the concept called balance of power. For them, why Second World War took place? Because there was no balance of power, or BOP as a concept failed. Okay, so for realists, no amount of economic interdependence, which is the belief of the liberals, I'll discuss that. I'm going to discuss that further in the video. So for them, no amount of economic interdependence can prevent war. No international institutions can prevent war. There was a League of Nations, which was established after the end of First World War, but it didn't able to prevent Second World War. For realist scholars, they have backed this thing with the data also. If we see the kind of economic interaction and engagement which was there between the European countries, there was more economic interdependence before the start of Second World War than during Cold War. During Cold War, there was a kind of iron curtain between the Western Europe and Eastern Europe. Means no economic interaction and engagement, no to and fro of trade, and there was more economic, the trade was more vibrant between the European countries before the start of Second World War, known as interwar period from 1919 to 1939. So if we see the trade data, the trade was more vibrant between the European countries during this time than during Cold War. But Cold War didn't turn into a full-fledged war, but this trade failed to prevent the war between the European countries because what failed? balance of power. So they believe in the concept of balance of power, and for them only way to prevent war is balance of power. And this concept of balance of power emerged during the Treaty of Westphalia, which established Westphalian world order. So there's a treaty way back known as Treaty of Westphalia, which ended 30 years of war in Europe. And this treaty established the concept of sovereignty as sacrosanct. So in this treaty, it was accepted that sovereignty of the state is sacrosanct and no one should threaten and violate the sovereignty of the other state. Okay, and this treaty established the concept of balance of power. The way to maintain peace is balance of power. And sovereignty becomes the core national interest. So for realists, states will never going to compromise on their core national interest, that is the interest of sovereignty. And they will even fight war on the name of their core interest, that is sovereignty. And for them, only way to protect the sovereignty is power. Okay. And the moment power balancing will fail, wars takes place. But as I said, this is a vicious circle. As states keep aspiring for power, and there comes Thucydides Trap. Established power wants to keep asserting its hegemony. Emerging power is increasing its power credentials like China, and this makes wars inevitable. And manifestation of Thucydides Trap we can see in the present times in the form of conflicts between Russia, Ukraine, and what is going on in West Asian politics. I hope this would have helped you to understand why a lot of chaos, violence, and instability in the present time. Right? The roots of realism lies in the works of Kautilya, Machiavelli, Hobbes, Morgenthau in the present time. So they all are realist scholars, and they have emphasized on power. It's all about power. Okay, the kind of destruction which took place during Second World War, it threatened humanity. And the need was realized that we need to prevent war. Okay, and this led to the emergence of the another theory or the school in the subject of international relations, that is liberalism. And liberal scholars, they came up with the view liberalism as a school is based on the values of liberty, freedom. And they came up with the view that if there is interdependence between the states, if trade becomes vibrant between the two countries, if we have strong international institutions and organizations who can ensure collective security, and for this a body called UN was created. If we'll able to strongly implement international law, rules and regulations, then we'll be in a position to prevent wars. This was the belief of liberal scholars. So they started emphasizing on these aspects, that we need to strengthen democracy in the world. Democracy as a political system ensures political liberties and political freedom of the people. In a democratic setup, leaders are responsible towards the people. Leaders have to justify wars. They cannot fight wars for their own personal interest. Okay, so liberals came up with this view. The way to prevent war is these. And it was felt the way politics started unfolding after the end of Second World War, especially after the end of Cold War, that now world politics will pursue on the lines of liberals. But in the present times, we can see again the scale has tilted towards realism and realist, and that's why realists claim themselves as that their thought process, realists believe that their thought process is timeless wisdom. Okay, so if you see the present politics, UN is facing existential crisis. UN has failed to stop blatant violation of human rights by the countries. There is a blatant violation of human rights going on within the countries. China has been blamed for violations of the rights of Uyghurs in Xinjiang province. So UN has been projected as a toothless tiger. Multilateralism is at receipt. Trade wars are going on. Protectionist states are pursuing protectionist policies. So liberalism is at the back foot. So after the Cold War, it was felt that liberalism will going to win the debate between these two theories, but we can clearly see the way politics is going on in the present time. Liberalism is at the back foot, and realism is again asserting its dominance. Okay, so the way US is asserting its hegemony, the way US has taken its actions in Venezuela, we all are well aware of that. The way they kidnapped the Venezuelan president, whatever the circumstances and the scenario, US has tried to justify, but it's a blatant violation of the articles of UN, where it has been accepted under UN that sovereignty is sacrosanct, and the US action in Venezuela is a clear violation of the sovereignty of Venezuela. Also, US action in Iran has been seen as a violation of the sovereignty of Iran. The US has tried to justify it on the name of self-defense. So, in the present time, we can clearly see UN is defying international law, norms, rules, and regulation, and UN is not in a position to counter US. Okay. The way Israel has been blamed for using excessive force, and already I have used earlier this sentence in the earlier video, that Israel's action is the manifestation of Thucydides Trap, where strong is doing what they want and weak has to suffer as they have. Okay, so in this backdrop, recently Canadian Prime Minister said that there is no order in the present world order. Okay, I forgot to said earlier. So as I said, liberal realist believes in Westphalian world order, and under the Westphalian world order, sovereignty becomes sacrosanct. Liberals, through international institutions and organizations, through the concept of collective security, by bringing dilution in the concept of balance of power, tried to create a new world order. Now the question mark is, are we able to see anything new in this new world order, or still Westphalian world order is intact, where states are not compromising on their sovereignty and they project it as their core national interest, and on the name of this they are going for wars. So for realists, there is nothing new in this new order, and the aspiration of the states to keep aspiring for power will never end. In this backdrop, Canadian Prime Minister said there is, in fact, there is no order in the new world order. Okay, so we have reached to the stage where so much has been done to bring dilution in the Westphalian world order. So much efforts been made in this direction, but again we have reached to the point where international norms, rules, and regulations are being blatantly violated, and realism as a theory is asserting its dominance in the subject of international relation. So when Canadian Prime Minister is saying there is no order in the present world order, it clearly reflects Thucydides' wisdom. Okay, and this is the stand of the government of India. We still trying to save the so-called liberal world order. We want states not to defy norms, rules, and regulations. India is one of the most vocal supporter of strengthening UN. India's stand is it's high time to revive it if UN needs to keep it relevant. If the way politics is going on, if things will go in this direction, in such a order of chaos, in the law of the jungle, where there is no rules, there is anarchy, not only weak will suffer, in the end, everyone will going to suffer in such a scenario. Okay, so As we can see, the erosion of international law. In the recent time, we can clearly see the erosion of international law. And this erosion of international law has tangible consequences. Okay. It has tangible consequences as it has diluted the trust between the countries and the nations. Okay. And this is not a healthy scenario as trust deficit prevails, and trust deficit can turn minor conflicts into full-fledged war, especially when two countries holding nuclear arsenal. Okay, so that's why the saying goes, the rule-based order, which was the aspiration of the liberals, is the best defense for the humanity. Okay, so the rule-based order remains humanity's best defense against chaos and instability. We hope that rationality prevails between the major players and the powers of the world politics. If you see the major players and the powers, they are G7 and the emerging bloc, which can be G20. So the rationality prevails among the major players and the powers of the world politics. And so the rule-based order remains humanity's best defense against chaos and anarchy. But the question mark is whether rule-based order will remain intact the way things are going on in present. Okay. I hope this discussion would have helped you to understand that we can analyze the things. We have to analyze the things in the light of the existing theories which are there in your subject. So if we study these two schools, realism and liberalism, we can clearly relate the present politics under the light of these two dominant schools of IR, and realism is again able to assert its dominance the way politics has drifted towards more chaos, violence and instability. One more info. I'm coming up with a new batch of PSIR on 22nd of June. This is the PSIR Foundation batch, and this batch will be in both offline and online mode. Offline classes will be at the premises of Anantam IAS. For online classes, you can enroll yourself at the platform of Sarrthi IAS. The class time will going to be 11:30. 22nd June, the classes will start from 11:30, and 21st, I'm try to have a orientation class where I am going to discuss in detail about the syllabus of PSIR, and will take the doubts if you have any that regarding the optional and any other query in general regarding UPSC preparation. So you can connect with me for the orientation class also from the channel of Sarrthi IAS on 21st of June. Information will be released soon at what time I'm going to take that orientation lecture. And for offline class, you can come to the premises of Anantam IAS 21st June when I'll take orientation class. It will be both offline and online, and you can come on the premises of Anantam IAS for offline class. Wishing you all best of luck.